Ever worked hard for something and felt like nothing was changing? You wake up early, you give your best, and still, the results don't come when you expect them. Days turn into weeks, effort turns into exhaustion, and you start to wonder if what you're doing even matters. Sometimes life makes you wait longer than feels fair. You see others moving ahead while you're still in the same place, doing the same work, hoping it will finally pay off. But what if the waiting isn't a waste of time? What if it's part of the process that shapes you into someone stronger? This is the story of a young man who learned that what grows slow often lasts the longest. His name was Darrow, and his journey began with the one thing most people tried to avoid: patience. Darrow lived in a small riverside village known for its pottery. Every house along the river had a kiln, and the air often smelled of baked clay. His father, once the best potter in town, had taught him how to shape the earth with his hands. Darrow was young, in his early 20s, full of ideas and energy. He dreamed of selling hundreds of pots in the next village and becoming famous for his designs. He worked faster than anyone, spinning, shaping, baking, rushing from one pot to the next. But the faster he worked, the more problems came. The clay cracked, the handles broke, the colors faded unevenly. Still, Darrow refused to slow down. "I can't wait days for them to dry," he said one morning. "If I do, I'll miss the market." His father watched quietly before replying, "Clay listens only to time, my son. If you rush it, it breaks." Darrow sighed. "Maybe that was true in your time, father, but people want things fast now." The old man only smiled. "Time hasn't changed, Darrow. We have." Darrow didn't answer. He turned back to his wheel, pressing the clay harder, spinning faster. He wanted to prove that patience was overrated, that hard work and speed were enough. But by the end of the day, 4 of his new pots had cracked in the fire. He stared at the broken pieces, angry and embarrassed. His father didn't scold him. He simply said, "Every craft has a rhythm. You can fight it, or you can learn it." Darrow didn't reply. He just swept the broken pieces aside and started again. But deep down, something in him was restless. The next morning, as the sun rose, the town crier announced the upcoming Harvest Festival, the biggest event of the year. The winner of the invention and craft competition would earn a place in the great trade market. Darrow's eyes lit up. "This is my chance," he said. "If I make 100 pots, I'll finally be seen." His father looked at him with calm eyes. "Make 10 that last. The rest will follow." But Darrow wasn't listening. He was already at the wheel, his hands moving fast, the sound of spinning clay filling the room. He worked all day, but impatience made him careless. He didn't check the moisture. He baked the pots before they were ready. By night, his shelves were full of pots that looked perfect, until the heat touched them. One by one, they began to crack. Darrow sat on the floor, his hands covered in clay. For the first time, he didn't feel proud of his speed. He just felt tired. The next few days were restless. Darrow woke early, worked late, and barely stopped to eat. He shaped dozens of pots, rushed the drying, and stacked them near the kiln. His father passed by quietly, watching him hurry. "Let the air do its work," he said softly. "Even fire obeys patience." Darrow wiped sweat from his forehead. "If I slow down, I'll lose the market." That night, he baked 20 pots at once, the kiln glowing orange in the dark. He stood proudly beside it, thinking of the silver coin prize he might win. But when morning came and he opened the door, his smile disappeared. Most of the pots had cracked. Some had exploded. Darrow's mother heard the noise and ran out. He stood there staring at the broken pieces, speechless. His father picked one up and turned it slowly in his hands. "This one wanted more time. You didn't listen." Darrow's voice rose. "I worked harder than anyone. Why does nothing last?" "Because strength doesn't come from speed. It comes from patience." Darrow didn't answer. He walked away, angry and humiliated. The villagers whispered about his failure. He avoided the market, avoiding their looks. A week later, he saw his father in the square, setting up a small stand. On the table were only 3 pots, plain, simple, perfectly smooth. People stopped to admire them. One woman asked, "How long does it take to make something like this?" The old man smiled, "As long as it needs." Darrow stood in the crowd watching. For the first time, he didn't feel jealous. He felt empty. He realized that his father didn't rush because he loved the craft, not the reward. That night, Darrow returned to the workshop. The shelves were covered with broken pots. He sat down on the floor, staring at them in silence. He picked one up, ran his hand over the cracks, and whispered, "I keep trying to win, but I never learn." He looked around, the clay, the wheel, the tools, and for the first time, he didn't move fast. He just sat there, thinking about what his father said. Then, slowly, he began again. This time, he worked on one pot. He didn't rush. He shaped it carefully, set it on the drying shelf, and walked away. The next morning, he checked it, adjusted the rim, and waited. Day after day, he repeated the process: knead, shape, dry, wait, bake. The village children passed by his workshop and laughed. "Only one pot, Darrow? At this rate, you'll be done next year." He smiled. "Maybe, but it will stay whole." His hands moved slower now, but steadier. He was learning what he once refused to hear. Patience wasn't weakness. It was control. By the end of the month, Darrow had only a few pots, but they were his best work. Smooth, balanced, strong. When he tapped one, it gave a clean, ringing sound. His father came by, touched the rim, and nodded. "Now the clay listens to you," he said. I smiled faintly. "No, father. I finally learned to listen to it." Weeks passed quietly. The sound of Darrow's spinning wheel returned to the mornings, but slower this time. Steady, almost peaceful. He no longer rushed the fire or stacked wet clay into the kiln. He had learned to wait. Then came the announcement. The harvest festival was only a week away. Posters went up in the square, and villagers began preparing their best crafts. The blacksmith polished iron gates, the weavers dyed new cloths, and children rehearsed songs for the parade. Darrow's father looked at him. "Will you join the festival this time?" Darrow nodded. "Yes, but I'll take only what's ready." Every night he checked his small collection of pots. No cracks, no chips, no rush marks. Each one told a story of quiet hands and long hours. On the morning of the festival, he packed them into a cart, padded with straw, and walked slowly toward the square. He didn't expect to win anything. He just wanted to show what he had learned. The square was bright with banners and music. Tables lined the streets, filled with handmade goods. When Darrow arrived, People turned to look. "Darrow the potter," someone called. "Didn't your last ones all crack?" He smiled gently. "Yes, they did. These ones took a little longer." He set up his table beside his father's. Side by side, the two stands looked simple but strong. When people touched the pots, they noticed how smooth and balanced they were. A merchant lifted one and said, "This feels solid. How did you make it?" Darrow replied, "By learning to wait." Word spread quickly through the crowd. People returned, curious to see the work of the young potter who used to rush everything. When the judges walked by, they stopped in front of Darrow's table. One of them, an older man with glasses, ran his hand across the clay and said, "This is good work. How long did you take to make it?" Darrow answered honestly, "Longer than I wanted to." The judge smiled. "That's usually how the best things are made." At sunset, the mayor climbed the wooden stage and called for silence. He said, "The award this year goes to the craftsman whose patience brought perfection to his work." He looked directly toward Darrow and his father. The crowd turned and clapped. Darrow stood there in disbelief. His father patted his shoulder and whispered, "You see, time listens too when we learn to wait." The mayor placed a small silver coin in Darrow's palm, the symbol of craftsmanship and honor. It wasn't the prize that made him emotional, it was the meaning behind it. He finally understood what his father had been teaching him all along. That night, as they walked home under the lanterns, Darrow pushed his cart slowly along the dirt road. The sound of the pots inside was soft and steady. He looked at his father and said, "I used to think patience was doing nothing. Now I know it's doing the right thing long enough to see it grow." His father smiled quietly. "Then your hands have learned what your heart was missing." The festival ended. The songs faded, the square emptied, and life in the village returned to its quiet rhythm. But inside Darrow's workshop, something new remained. He no longer worked to impress anyone. He worked because he loved the calm that came with doing one thing right. Every morning he shaped clay with steady hands. Every evening he cleaned his tools and left the bench ready for tomorrow. People noticed. When their pots cracked, they brought them to Darrow. He repaired each one with care and a small smile. Old Mrs. Io said, "You've grown patient, my boy." He replied, "I just learned that rushing breaks more than clay." Even travelers came to watch him work. He spoke little, but his hands said enough. One afternoon, a child asked, "Doesn't waiting make you bored?" Darrow answered, "If I rush, I start over. If I wait, I finish." Months passed, then years, and Darrow's workshop became known across nearby towns. He had grown older and calmer. One evening, his father came to visit. He looked around the small workshop, the shelves lined with finished pots, each one smooth and strong. He smiled quietly and said, "You've built more than clay, my son. You've built peace." Darrow nodded, his voice gentle. "No, father, patience built it for me." Patience isn't about doing nothing. It's about working quietly while time does its part. It's the strength to stay when everything in you wants to rush.